Hey everybody, as you can see here, I'm going to be talking about the 2020 Easter tornado outbreak, a review of it, how we can prepare for the future, and like what's next to come. Alright, as you can see, I'm on the Wikipedia page, and I just want to point out a couple things before I get right into the tornado outbreak. First, you can see the largest hail was 4-inch hail in Del Rio and Brackenville, Texas, which, first of all, that's pretty insane considering that most severe thunderstorms only come with 1 inch. So that's like 4 times the normal. And then also, as you can see here, on the highest, the highest winds that were non-tornadic were 110 miles per hour. Most severe thunderstorms come with 60 or 70 miles per hour winds. Of course, this is probably just a gust, but still, the severe thunderstorm probably had consistent winds of 80 or 90 miles an hour. So yeah, let's get right into it. Oh yeah, one more thing. The power outages, 1.44 million at one time. That's a pretty huge portion of our country, considering that it was just a tornado outbreak, and 4.3 million in total. That's a lot. All right. You can see here, these are all the tornado tracks. You can see how they went all the way from southwest Texas all the way to just outside of Baltimore. So yeah, like this storm went a long way. And as you can see here, the tornadoes, they were starting to become more and more over East Texas, and you can just see how there was this line of tornadoes from like one or a couple of supercells starting from East Texas and falling like all the way along I-20. So it stayed right along I-20 pretty much the whole time. Eventually it did get north because I-20 goes through Jackson, and as you can see, the tornadoes were probably about 50 miles north of Jackson, and there weren't as many in Mississippi over this path. But then southern Mississippi, near Hattiesburg, there were more. There were some more, and these were very bad. 2 EF4s and an EF3. We're going to talk more about that later. And then you can see it started to ramp up again in Alabama. Alabama, I believe, was the state with the most tornadoes in this outbreak. Or maybe in Georgia. I mean, just look at Georgia, too. There was that same line of supercells, or that went all the way from East Texas to Georgia. And then all these other ones in, like, South Georgia. There's even a tornado in Florida. South Carolina got hit pretty hard, too. Which, that's interesting, because they really only had a torque on a 5, but as you can see on the scale, look at all these EF3s here. Man, it's pretty incredible. Pretty significant outbreak for sure. And pretty exceptional. And then it kind of started to weaken. And then it went up, and it was pretty much gone. But yeah, alright. In fact, they had to make, not only is there page for all the tornadoes in general during this outbreak, but there's actually a particular page of tornado by tornado, which that's pretty crazy. Alright. I want you to notice how as the day continues on, the tornadoes start to get stronger and stronger, which not really surprised. And then as the peak where the 3 long track tornadoes were in around 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. And then you can see the first EF3 in Monroe. There was this own section about this tornado. And as you can see, this was probably the worst EF3. Probably even worse than the one in southern Mississippi, just because of the area hit. Because Monroe was probably the biggest city that got hit by a tornado in this outbreak. Or at least a significant tornado. Basically, something that does damage like an EF2 or higher. Like, you know what I mean by damage. Alright, as you can see here, basically, they even issued a tornado emergency, so you know it's pretty bad. It wasn't just a mile south of downtown. Could have been probably a lot worse if it did hit downtown. Tornado lasted for 9 minutes and it traveled 8.03 miles. 458 homes were impacted, including 23 that were destroyed. And when they say destroyed, I'm assuming that those were the homes I gave it the EF3 rating, because once an EF3 basically destroys a home with leaving a couple walls left, 108 that had major damage, so I'm assuming that's EF2 or higher, EF3 too. Alright. We'll go back here and more tornadoes. Keep in mind these were pretty much just to the north of I-20. Basically tornadoes all across northern Louisiana from Shreveport to Monroe. And then they continue to Mississippi. As you can start seeing them in Mississippi. And you have two struck Yazoo City. Which, just more and more tornadoes. And then eventually, an EF4. The first EF4. And this was actually surprising because this was the shortest track of the tornadoes. And I don't even think this one even got a tornado emergency. And keep in mind, we are going to do a more in-depth review of these tornadoes later. And then this one got the tornado emergency. I mean, just look at that. It's destroyed. This tornado did damage. And keep in mind, this was the one that was 2.25 miles wide, making it the third widest tornado in recorded history. Just sad. Alright. And then now you can see all these other tornadoes pretty much in the Tuscaloosa and Birmingham area. And then there was this other long track tornado. And this tornado had the longest track of all of them. Now it does a preliminary survey, but I just don't think it got updated. This could have had EF4 damage, but the highest ones measured were on EF3. But you do gotta keep in mind, this is rural Mississippi, and one of the EF4s could have been an EF5. So, but I don't really think they have wind trackers all over Mississippi to track the tornado's winds. But we will technically really never know, but they only recorded EF3 and EF winds from that one, and EF4 from the others. As you can just see here, more and more tornadoes. And another thing of what I thought was significant is when we went into the next day, this April 12th was supposed to be worse, and it really was in a way. And April 13th was supposed to be more mild, but in terms of confirmed tornadoes, they're pretty much about the same, which I thought was pretty interesting. Lots of EF3s here too. Lots of EF3s, like a lot. This tornado outbreak, I believe, had 12 EF3s total. So, yeah. And then the 2 EF4s, just pretty bad. I mean, just so many of them. Pretty much the same as the day before. Alright, now time for the in-depth analysis of the Mississippi long track tornadoes. Credit to the Weather Channel. They're the one who put this up, so credit to them. Now this EF4, the 2 EF4s you see here were both by the same supercell. As you can see, this track was on the ground. This one was on the ground for 21.2 miles lifted, and then it came down again. And keep in mind, all these towns, Bassville, Seminary, Selleso, they all just have a couple hundred people. And I'm pretty sure the only town that you have to even impacted was Collins, Mississippi, I believe. Doesn't show it up in here, but I did a little bit more research. Another reason why I could have gone an EF3 rating, because like I said, I don't think they have ways to measure the winds all over Mississippi. I mean, especially in this area. And keep in mind, where all these roads intersect, that's Hattiesburg. So this just missed Hattiesburg, probably about 40, 50 miles to the north. And I'm assuming whatever damage this one did was pretty much all EF4 damage and was pretty much all EF3 damage too, because this was the same tornado, and you can see how it has EF4 damage at first, then EF3. These tornadoes, they were probably only about 10 miles apart for a long period of time, maybe a little more. And you can see that 2.25 miles, peak winds of 190. That's not too far from EF5 damage, which is just incredible in a bad way, though. The peak winds of all three of these tornadoes were 20 miles per hour apart. The EF4, this one, 3/4 of a mile, just over a mile, and 2.25 miles wide. Just very destructive. Alright, so now we're gonna talk about how we can, get ready for the future. Like, there is gonna be another, if you're watching this today when it gets uploaded, or like the next day, there is a tornado outbreak tomorrow covering the same areas. It's not supposed to be as bad, but everybody has to be prepared. And then also, the more traditional tornado alley areas gotta be prepared when it comes to May, like Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska, even the Dakotas. They gotta be prepared because this is a pretty significant and exceptional tornado season we're having so far, and we already got 3 EF4s, which last year we had 3 EF4s, and then the past 3 years before that we only had 2 EF4s, and April's not even over yet. We still got May, and then sometimes there can be bad tornadoes in the fall. And so how we can prepare for the future, just prepare now. Even in Dixie Alley still, just gotta be ready, because there is another tornado outbreak coming tomorrow for watching this the day it was uploaded, and even one potentially mid next week. And another thing that I noticed is Dixie Alley is becoming the new tornado alley. More and more tornado outbreaks are starting to happen in Dixie Alley, overshadowing the usual tornado alley. So people in Dixie Alley, they're really the new tornado alley, because January, February, and March, pretty much Dixie Alley is the only place that can be impacted, because, well, think about it, anywhere north of that, it's too cold, and tornadoes can't happen out in the west, or at least it's very rare. It just doesn't work that way. And then in the summer months and late spring months, like April, May, April, the peak for Dixie Alley, and May, the peak for regular tornado alley. And then for June, July, June, still tornado alley, but usually more north, like the Dakotas area, Minnesota. July, not really a lot of tornadoes during that month, just kind of the same thing. September and August, most tornadoes from those months are from hurricanes, which, keep in mind, hurricanes, if they enter the Gulf Coast and then they make landfall somewhere along the Gulf Coast, that impacts Dixie Alley once again. And then October, November, December, just like January, February, March, it's too cold up in the north of Dixie Alley. So Dixie Alley really does get more impacted than the regular tornado alley, especially more and more recently. Alright, so that's my 2020 Easter Sunday tornado outbreak review on, basically saying what happened, giving a summary. Please tell me what you thought in the comments below. See y'all guys later.